League and McDonald's, two things that only seem to kind of link up with each other when you talk about the diet of the players or the profession of the players. But they're actually a lot more similar than you think, and even than I thought when I first started working there. And so in this video, I'll be hopefully presenting in an entertaining way how similar the 5 league rules are to the 5 rules that you perform in a McDonald's kitchen, at least in the McDonald's kitchen that I worked in, so that one day, if you do decide to work at McDonald's, you can tell them that you are a mid main and they will put you on that role. Or maybe you already do work at McDonald's and maybe you can try and lock in Yasuo when you're making a sandwich. I don't know what the applicability of this is. It's kind of a shower thought that I thought was hopefully funny enough to turn into a video. So firstly, I'll break down the roles, at least in the kitchen that I worked in. The roles we had, which is basically initiator. Initiator essentially initiates the creation of the sandwich. So you put the bun in the toaster if it needs one, and you take out the boxes and the wrappers for the sandwich. Followed by grills. Grills encompass fryers, where you grill and fry the product that needs to be grilled and fried. You have table, which is the assembly table with all the ingredients for sandwiches, and you just assemble it. We have cabinets, which are heated cabinets, which contain the meat that you will put on sandwiches or in boxes for nuggets. And I don't know if there's any other promotions, but basically it just contains the meat and you provide the meat where it is necessary. Then you have maintenance, which is taking out garbage, washing dishes, and general preparation. So first of all, the first similarity between a kitchen role and a League of Legends role is top lane. Top lane would be the initiating role. And the reason why is because top lane is at least in my opinion, a knowledge-based role where a player can do incredibly well in top lane on just if they're devoid in mechanics, um, because of matchup knowledge, because of just knowing what the enemy champion does and wave management, stuff of that nature. Top lane can do very well if they're not familiar in the role, which is great for initiating because the only thing you realistically need is to know what boxes wrappers need to be taken out and what buns need to be put in the toaster. So they're, top and initiator are both roles where you can throw someone into it, and if they have the right knowledge, they'll do it well. It's sure when things have a lot of pressure, when there's a lot of pressure put on one person, then it can not go as well, which is where the top lane mains will succeed because they'll be able to, keep themselves in the game, quote unquote, easier than a person who hasn't really done that role, or fulfilled that role for as long as them. But it's generally just a knowledge-based role, and just like top, its initiating is full. It doesn't require much more than a good head on your shoulders. And okay, that's an example of wave management. So next we have the grill position, which I align with being a jungler. Um, Now, grill requires a lot of mechanics, requires a lot of efficiency as well, which is exhibited in the bottom image. I guess the guy with that trimmed off the sides of the cube is moving more efficiently, but kind of sucks for wherever that sphere is going because if the person ordered a cube, then he'll not, he might get it more efficiently, but he's not actually getting what he ordered. But I digress. Yeah, grill requires a lot of mechanics because essentially, you have to keep track of a lot of things, which is what junglers have to do. They have to keep track of, their own camps, their own lanes, and neutral objectives that laners don't necessarily have to keep track of. Bot lane doesn't need to keep track of Rift Herald. Top lane doesn't need to keep track of Drakes. That's not within their roles wheelhouse unless you talk about teleport plays or whatnot. But Grill or Jungle need to keep track of all of that. They need to keep track of stock levels of meat on for frying and for grilling, which in my kitchen at least are on two different sides of the kitchen. So there's a lot of efficiency with that and cooking time, syncing up the cook time and cooking times is kind of like jungle pathing where you want to sync up the spawn times of camps to make it most efficient when you clear through. Just like at jungle, you want to sync up the cook times so that when you sweep through and pick up all the meat after it's been cooked, it doesn't overcook and you get it right when you need it. Jungle like Grill is also a role where you can get blamed easily. If in jungle, if your laners are all feeding, they'll blame you. Just as if you're grilling, people will blame you for not getting their food up. Their sandwiches out in time, even though it's likely their fault if they didn't communicate that they were low on a certain product. So this is yeah, I mean, it's just a picture that I found about pathing, which grilling is a pathing intensive role with a lot of pressure on it, and which is similar to the next role that I have, which is table. That is Zed holding a tartar sauce gun, which is indeed what we used to put tartar sauce on our sandwiches. But not a lot of people like tartar sauce, so we don't really use it as much, which is probably why we'll say that's why the gun in the photo is pretty full. Um, Either way, table is where the sandwiches are made. And like mid, it is in the most convenient spot to help out other roles, which, if you're on table, you're kind of a roamer. You can roam to help other roles and relieve pressure. Also, mid requires a lot of awareness. It requires a lot of it, so it requires a lot of awareness, kind of like top, where there's a lot of matchups that can play out. So it does require matchup knowledge, just like table requires knowledge of what every sandwich has naturally, but also something that initiating lacks. It lacks the required knowledge of special toppings. If someone has a special order, or as there are certain guidelines that you must follow to make sure that it's followed properly. Even the order in which ingredients are put on a sandwich should be followed, or is kind of required to be followed. So with that, mid and table are kind of analogous because it is a role a lot about thinking, but there's also mechanics for laying it down as fast as possible, sliding it to cabinets so they can finish it off. There's Especially when the table fills up, there's a lot to keep track of, and there's a lot to do with table. So this it's just a picture of Rome. Um, Kind of messing up the timing, but it is a thinking man's role for sure, which is why mid and table it is a mechanical role, and autopiloting, which is mid is a role that you will get your mistakes punished on. And if I've had it happen many times where I've autopiloted while being on table, and as a result, I've put onions on sandwiches that don't have it shouldn't have onions, or all the things that will happen if you don't pay fully attention. Um, it requires precision, and I think the picture on the right is about someone helping someone, not of them about to handshake by a sunset. Uh, Next role is cabinet. This is the role that is analogous to support. And there's nothing much to say here. The cabinet is an easy role. You can throw anyone on it, and they'll do it fine, just like support. Honestly, support. I've played a lot of support. It's one of my more played roles, but I recognize the fact that you can throw most people on it. They can play Janna, Soraka, whatever, and they'll always be useful. And they'll I mean, it's just not a generally hard role at the base level. Cabinet, you don't need to know you don't need to know any ingredients on a sandwich except for how much meat is on it. You don't need to know, the boxes of nuggets will tell you how much is supposed to be in there. I mean, really, support is a simple rule. It can be optimized. Like cabinet can be optimized to be really efficient, which is kind of like support because support can be optimized to be very high value. And cabinet naturally is a high value role because if there's no one to put the meat on the sandwiches, then obviously that's a problem. So, that's kind of analogous there. But the last one, sadly, for ADC players because they keep taking L's or bot lane players, is maintenance. And bot laners are pretty much all they do is the maintenance type stuff. They spend the entire game being, well, maintenance is kind of like if every ADC player played like Ashe and Senna, because ADC, just like maintenance, you're doing the boring stuff like CSing or, in a McDonald's worker's case, taking out garbage, washing dishes, all that stuff that generally just feels tedious. And then, but it does contribute. Like ADCs do contribute to late game, and same for maintenance. Maintenance once it hits late game in a shift, and all the garbage is taken out, all the dishes are clean, all the prep is done. It does make the shift a lot easier. And an ADC that had farmed up, had done all the boring stuff like avoiding fights and making sure they're well fed with minions and all that, it makes the game easier. Just like when someone does maintenance well, they make the shift easier for everybody, but you're not going to be celebrated. An ADC, you're not going to be celebrated, I'll correct that, unless you do an exceptional job. And that's the same for ADCs because ADCs can often be outshined by mid, top, jungle, and initiating can't really outshine a good person on table or grill, but a good person on table or grill, so like a good mid and jungle, will often outshine an ADC or a person on maintenance. That's just how it is, and it works like that in McDonald's too. I'm sorry, bot lane mains, but you guys really can't escape it. You guys finish a ranked game of League of feeding and being picked on the entire game. You go to work a shift, and it's the same thing. You're just washing dishes and no one gives you credit. So it I do feel bad for the ADC players because it is a boring low priority role. Um, Generally just like maintenance. And it's a role where you'll just generally get no credit for. Um, so, recapping real quick, you have initiators or top lane, grills are junglers, people on table are mid laners, people on cabinet are supports, and people on maintenance are ADC. So, you know, whoever's whoever is watching that does work at McDonald's, you can tell your manager that, oh, you're a jungler, put me on the grills, and then they will look at you judgmentally, wonder what the hell this guy's talking about, and they'll just walk away, and you'll be left standing there, thinking to yourself, why the hell did I listen to that guy on YouTube? Assuming you actually watched this all the way through, which if you did, I do appreciate it. Um, and oh yeah, shit, I have more slides. I think the first one was like pointlessness or whatever, and the second picture's of a scale, so like the maintenance role does scale well enough at the very least. It'll be a useful late game. So either way, now we're at this part of the video where I thank you all for watching. If you've reached this point, if you enjoyed, make sure to use that set W on the like and subscribe buttons. Only if you enjoyed, of course. If you didn't, then you can dislike it and try and find my address to send me hateful mail. And if you have feedback or comments about the video, then you can leave them below and I'll try to respond to whatever's there. Thank you.